Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex or Nuznuz here, and today's video is going to be all about the new pocket slot item, the Elder God Book, the Scripture of Wen, which is dropped from the new Arch Glacor Boss. Now, this God Book is just like the Scripture of Joss, but with a different ability. And today's video, I'm going to be going and buying this book, testing it out at different places, giving my first impressions, and talking about just how good I think it is. I have to say, this pocket slot item might be my favorite pocket slot item in the game, and I'm super excited to talk about it now. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this, and let's get into the video. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this book has only been out for a few days, so there's still a ton of testing that can be done. However, I wanted to give you my findings and my first impressions on the book. So, the Scripture of Wen is a pocket slot item that's dropped by the Arch Glacor in either normal or hard mode. It cost me around 70 mil to buy off the GE, and one spot the book becomes untradeable. However, just like the Scripture of Joss, this book is very cheap to charge, only costing around 125 to 150k for one whole hour of charge, which is absolutely dirt cheap compared to the other pocket slot items. So, what does this book do? Well, its special ability is called Sheer Cold, which lets each attack have a chance to summon an icy beam that goes off for 3.6 seconds. The icy beam attacks anything standing in it. Now, once the target has been hit 5 times by the beam, they will shatter for 400% ability damage. This ability is just as good as it sounds. It's very similar to the Illuminated Book of Law, which spins a tornado dealing 180% to 300% ability damage. However, just like the Book of Law, if the target moves, this will cancel the ability. With the Scripture of Wen, the target needs to be hit 5 times in order to shatter, and the target needs to be standing in it. This means it works best at bosses that don't move very often, like Raksha, Nex for the minions in the corners, Ambassador, Magister, and the Arch Glacor. So if a boss is standing in the same spot for most of the time, it doesn't have to be every second, but I would say most of the time, then this book is going to be worth using. So now we're going to look at some tests that I did and see how this compares to the Illuminated Book of Law, since that's kind of its counterpart. So what I did first was the same thing I did with the Scripture of Joss, where I went to compare the book at a 5-minute challenge gem. And I did it on normal dummies with the same gear and as close to the same rotation that I could possibly get. So of course dummies don't move, so this should be able to give us a pretty good indication of how good this book is compared to the Illuminated Book of Law. Well, for the Illuminated Book of Law, I ended up getting 1,180k damage in 5 minutes. And when I did the Scripture of Wen, I ended up getting 1,210k damage in 5 minutes, so a noticeable difference for this test. Now, of course, I only did one 5-minute challenge gem for each book, so this could be skewed a bit due to RNG on my, different abilities if I messed up and a lot of things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the Scripture of Wen to another test and a more practical test. And the first test I'm going to be doing is to test it at the Arch Glacor himself. Now, the Arch Glacor stands still, so this should be pretty comparable. Now, I did want to skew the results based on getting something like minions or bad RNG, which slows down kills. So what I decided to do was I did a ton of normal mode kills using only 4 mechanics. I did not use the minions. So seeing as I killed him pretty fast, I didn't get more than 2 or 3 mechanics, and none of the mechanics really slowed me down too much. Now, if I did get a kill during this test that had bad luck in terms of mechanics, I ended up taking that out of the data and I labeled it as an outlier. So something like getting the beams twice in a row, that would slow me down a lot and would kind of be bad RNG, so I would take that out as an outlier. So if we look at our Book of Law kills, these are some of the kill times, for example. Now, for all my kills for the Illuminated Book of Law, I average around 68.5 second kills with this book. Now, if we go and move on and we look at the Scripture of Wen, I did the same amount of kills, and there's no doubt that this is a powerful god book. We average around 61.2 second average kills with 4 mechanics on normal mode. Now, this is a huge difference, and I really couldn't believe it, so I went and tried a few more with each, and sure enough, I was getting like 5 to 6 seconds faster while using the Scripture of Wen. I did more and more kills just to make sure, and yeah, it seems like this was the difference, at least for me. So of course we can't get this exact, but what is a comparison right now, in the first few days of this being released between these two books? So we can tell just on paper by the special attacks, the Scripture of Wen deals 400% ability damage compared to the Illuminated God book dealing 180% to 300% ability damage. Now the books work almost the exact same way, and they seem to proc the exact same amount of time. This means it's clear just by the special effects that the Scripture of Wen is just a good amount better, looking at 25% more ability damage per proc at minimum than the Illuminated God book. So if you're unlucky with the Illuminated God book, it can do 180% ability damage per proc, which is less than half of what the Scripture of Wen deals. So the Scripture of Wen is clearly the most powerful god book by far in RuneScape. In my opinion, it's better than the Scripture of Jaws as well. Now, although this book is very good, superior scrimshaws and grimoires of course are a bit better than this, but what about the costs? Well, as of now, with a ton of people camping the Arch Glacor since it just came out, you can get this book for around 65 to 70 million GP, of course, to buy it up front, and then to charge it, the pages are going for only around 100k each, which means you can get like 1 hour of charge for only 125k, which is just absolutely insane. Now, if we compare that to the price of using the Illuminated Book of Law, Armadillo pages are 1.5 mil each, or it'll cost you around 2 million GP per hour to use the Illuminated Book of Law. Now, of course, you do need to pay the starting price of 65 to 70 mil to purchase the Scripture of Wen, but for places like Nex, the Arch Glacor, Raksha, Magister, anywhere the bosses are moving, it is absolutely worth it. Now, this book is like a super Armadillo god book, and it's really, really good. Of course, more testing needs to be done and more synergies can be found, but for the price of 125k per hour, my gosh, this book is really, really good. I really love how Jagex is changing the pocket slot item meta, and they're giving us more options with cheaper cost per hour. It always sucked having to pay like 3 or 4 mil an hour just to use a Scrimshaw or a Book of Law at a boss, and now you have the choice between the Scripture of Jaws, which would be good for all around things that move around often like Telos, etc., or you have the Book of Wen for things like Arch Glacor or non-moving bosses. I just feel Elder God Wars is doing great, and I personally really like this book, and I think its effect looks really cool and is really cool in general. So what do you guys think of the Scripture of Wen? Is it worth it in your opinion? Personally, I think so, but let me know in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Elder God Wars content. More will be coming, and I'll see you all in the next video.